Interview.
There you go.
We founded ArenaNet to innovate, so Guild Wars 2 is our opportunity to question everything, to make a game that defies existing conventions. If you love MMOs, you'll want to check out Guild Wars 2. And if you hate MMOs, you'll really want to check out Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 takes everything you love about Guild Wars 1 and puts it into a persistent world. It's got more active combat, a fully branching, personalized storyline, a new event system to get people playing together, and still no monthly fees.
The look of Guild Wars 2 is stylized. We're going for a painterly, illustrated aesthetic. Everything in our world feels handcrafted and artisanal. We treat our environments as if they are characters themselves.
When you look at the art in our game, you say, wow, that's visually stunning. I've never seen anything like that before. And then when you play the combat in our game, you say, wow, that's incredible. I've never seen anything like that. In most games, you go out and you have really fun tasks occasionally that you get to do. And the rest of the game is this boring grind to get to the fun stuff. I swung a sword. I swung a sword again. Hey, I swung it again. That's great. We just don't want players to grind. No one enjoys that. No one finds it fun. We want to change the way that people view combat.
As a structure, the MMO has lost the ability to make the player feel like a hero. Everybody around you is doing the same thing you're doing. The boss you just killed respawns 10 minutes later. It doesn't care that I'm there.
You'll get quest text that tells you, I'm being attacked by these horrible things, and it's not actually happening. In the game world, these horrible centaurs are standing around in a field, and you get a quest step that says, go kill 10 centaurs. We don't think that's okay. You see what's happening. You see centaurs running to the trading post, knocking the walls down, burning and killing the merchants.
We do not want to build the same MMO everyone else is building. And in Guild Wars 2, it's your world. It's your story. You affect things around you in a very permanent way.
Cause and effect. A single decision made by a player cascades out in a chain of events.
You're meeting new people whom you will then see again. You're rescuing a village that will stay rescued, who then remember you. The most important thing in any game should be the player. We have built a game for them.
There you go. Pretty awesome stuff. Then the manifesto videos are a line in the sand, and it sort of distinguishes what makes Guild Wars 2 so special. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of the key characteristics of what distinguishes Guild Wars 2. Colin and John will take it away, and then we'll take a look at those key videos.
All right, so to start out, I just want to clarify 3 points that we get asked an awful lot about Guild Wars 2. The first question is Guild Wars 2 a fully persistent true MMO? The answer is yes. Guild Wars 1 was a mostly instance game. We hesitated to call it a full MMO. Guild Wars 2 is a true MMO. It is a giant persistent world where you'll be playing together with hundreds of other players at the same time in the same maps. Second question is there jumping in Guild Wars 2? Yes. And the third question is there a monthly fee for Guild Wars 2? And the answer is absolutely not. Buy the game once, you can play it forever. So that is a quick overview of the 3 points that we want to make sure everybody understands about Guild Wars 2. And the next thing we're going to talk about is innovation in Guild Wars 2. So at the start of that video, our founder, Mike O'Brien, mentions that we founded ArenaNet to innovate. And Guild Wars 2 is attempting to innovate the MMO genre in 3 key areas: personal story, dynamic events, and combat. So I'm going to start first by talking about personal story. So personal story is our attempt to take the RPG elements that you would find in a great single-player RPG and put that into an MMO. The idea here is when you create a brand new character, you're actually going to fill out a biography where you answer questions about who your character is. And these are things like if you're a human, you're going to say, I came from the city streets, I came from the commoner class, I came from the gentry class. And this will give you a unique storyline that you can go on that's different than other players. Along this storyline, you make decisions that branches the story and gives you completely unique and different content. So even if one person decides to be from the gentry class, they may have a completely different story than the one that you get to experience because of the branching that occurs as you play through the storyline. The things that happen in this storyline are permanent. They change your character forever. And we reflect those things in your home instance, which is an area in your character's home city that you can go back to, and you can see things that have changed based on the decisions you've made throughout the game. You may have a friend who's in dire need, and you can choose to go help them, or you can let them be for the greater good. And the choice that you make will be reflected. When you go back to your home instance, if you saved your friend, they'll be there, and they'll have completely different dialogue based on the things you've done in the game. If you let them fall and they die, other things will happen in the game world. Secure your laptop and protect your data with failsafe. So this is the first core area for us is innovation, is personal story. We want your character to have a personality. In a traditional MMO, if somebody asks you, who is your character, you answer, well, I'm a ranger with a bow who kills things. I don't really know. And you're going to be able to answer that question in Guild Wars 2. Say who your character is, and you're going to have a journal that you can go, and it records all the things that you've done in the game throughout your personal story. And you can go back and read this journal and see exactly who your character is and tell people that. So that's number one. The second thing we're trying to do is we're trying to take the concept of traditional quests in an MMO and throw them out the window. We have replaced those entirely with dynamic events in Guild Wars 2. So the concept here is when you're out exploring in the world, there are dynamic events that are going on all over the place around you. And people can naturally join in on these dynamic events. You don't have to walk up to a guy, talk to him, read 6 paragraphs of text, and figure out what's going on. Go off, do something, come back, and get a reward. Instead, in Guild Wars 2, you are naturally drawn into this content. An example of this would be, there's an army of centaurs that's marching through, going to attack a city. You're going to see this army marching through. You're going to see people from the city running out, finding your character in the game, telling you, I need your help. An army is attacking us, and they'll point at the city and tell you where to go. You're going to see centaur catapults flinging boulders through the air in the distance to draw you towards this content. You're going to see buildings on fire. You're going to see and hear all of this, so you don't ever have to read about it, and you become naturally immersed and drawn into this content. Now, these dynamic events don't stop there. This is just the start of a dynamic event chain. So the centaurs are going to come and they're going to attack a town. And if you fail to defend that town, they're going to take it over, and a new event begins where they hold the town and the players need to take it back. If the town is held, the merchants from that town are killed off, the villagers are dead, some of them scatter to try to get help, but this place is lost to the world, so players can no longer go there until they liberate it. And then it doesn't stop there. The events continue to branch out. So the centaurs are going to go to a nearby forest, and they're going to start chopping down trees and trying to build siege weapons and take those siege weapons back to reinforce the town they just took. You have another event where you can stop them from doing this. If you fail to do so, the town becomes more defended by the centaurs. There's going to be escort events where you can escort troops and escort supplies up to the front lines to try to help against the attacks to take the city back. If you don't drive the centaurs out of the city fast enough, new events kick off where the centaurs move out and they start to attack other towns nearby and conquering those. And all of this goes as part of a giant dynamic event chain that spreads out across the map. The idea behind this is every time you explore in a map in Guild Wars 2, you're never going to know what's going on because there can be completely different dynamic events running at any given time. So you have a unique experience each day you play through the map, and you may see something completely different with a brand new character than somebody else saw as they played through the game. Now there's some technology that we needed to add to support dynamic events to make all of this work properly. One of the things that we did is events dynamically scale based on the number of players that are there actively participating in the event. So for example, in the example where the centaurs are attacking the town, the number of centaurs attacking continue to scale up and more centaurs come if more players come to defend the town. So there's enough stuff for everybody to do who's participating in this event. If you're doing a kill boss style event where there's a giant boss in the world, as 100 players run in and start participating in it, the boss will continue to grow in power to make it fun for all 100 people, and they start gaining new abilities they can use to make the battle more interesting as more people show up. This is all part of the core concept of Guild Wars 2, where we're trying to build a community between our players, and the dynamic events is one of the things that's at the forefront of that. One of the base rules of our game is if I attack a creature and somebody else comes up and helps kill that creature, we both get experience for it, we both can get loot for it. There's no kill stealing in Guild Wars 2. There's no stopping somebody else from getting a creature. The idea is that you're part of a community and you're working together, and these dynamic events allow for that. So everybody teamed up in an event is participating. Is everybody else hearing that? It's kind of ringing. So everybody else that's participating in an event is building a sense of community together. Things that you're doing and killing together, everybody's getting rewarded for it. The events become more difficult as more players are around. So as you see other players in a map, you're excited about it. You're really excited to see other players come up and join you, instead of in a traditional MMO, where if you see other players, you're upset because they're going to come over, they're going to steal your loot, they might steal your kills to prevent you from completing a quest. So dynamic events is the number 2 area that we're trying to innovate. The third area we're focusing on innovation is combat, and I'm going to let John talk to you a little bit about that.
Yeah. I don't hear anything. Sorry, Colin. Yeah, so combat. Colin talked about that social thing, and while we talk a lot about our combat being really active too, I think another really, really important thing that we're trying to do with the combat is make it social as well. And I don't know about everyone else, but I'm pretty tired of looking for groups. I'm pretty tired of homing projectiles, shooting at me, not being able to dodge out of the way, and all that stuff. And I think I'm pretty tired of clicking on red bars, watching red bars go up and down, and pressing buttons and pressing 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 3 1 1 1 1 2. It's getting pretty old, and so we think it's kind of time for a change for that. And that's what the combat is all about. There are different things that players need out of combat, and one thing that you want is players to be able to interact with each other, to have a role in combat, and to matter. And for a long time, that role has meant I'm either a healer, I'm a tank, or I'm a DPS, and that's all I can do. In fact, in Guild Wars 2, everyone can do all those things, and we expect you to do all of them within a single fight sometimes, and certainly as you're going through the game. And that is not the role that you play. The role that you play is how you do it, and not what you do. The distinction is, look at our professions, the Guardian. He's all about controlling area. He's about laying things down, making people move out of places, controlling the ground, taking over the areas of the battlefield. The Thief, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of that. He's making you turn around, look, he's moving in, moving out. And it's a much more interesting thing to deal with making a profession choice and who you bring based on their play style and based on who you want to play with and not who you have to play with. We don't want to make sure that people are playing with their friends. If you have 5 friends and you guys all want to play warriors, then you should all be able to play warriors. It shouldn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you have 5 warriors or 5 guardians. The game is about playing with people who you want to play with. So the same thing with that. We talk a lot about the dodging and the active combat. It's one of those subtle things that actually even at work, we haven't really figured out how it all works yet. The whole shooting a projectile and guys getting in the way. You don't really realize what that means until you've played the game for a few months and you start thinking about, oh, I'm fighting these two creatures and I'm shooting that. Oh, I'm actually not shooting the guy in the back. This guy in front of me is in my way. These bullets are hitting him. I have to move out of the way. I have to actually do something to do what I want to do in combat. And it takes a while. I mean, you've all seen the YouTube videos. It takes a while for people to learn that. They're kind of stuck in their ways and standing around shooting. And once you start to get used to the game, you realize just how different all that stuff is. And I mean, I think we have the Thief videos here that we can kind of give you an idea of what that means. This stuff is all in-game. This isn't fake. It's not some sort of rendered thing. This is what the game plays like, especially once you know what you're doing. So.
playing a Sura Thief after watching that. It's pretty awesome, right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We know you guys have a lot of questions, so as you can see in the center here, we have a microphone for your speaking pleasure. You can form an orderly line right up here. Sure, you got your hand raised. Start the party off right here.
Question, I just want to say thank you. Because for the longest time, I've been trying to find an MMO that's actually good. I played Guild Wars 1 and I did like that, really because it was free and it was low level cap of 20, but there was a lot to do. But this is exactly what I've been waiting for, and I'm definitely pre-ordering this, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
In the skill
videos, the tune does some vocalizations, emotes, the I am so stunning, the that's where it's done. How do you call those up? Is that an emote command or is it automatic?
So there are about 400 lines for every player, and they're all in combat. It's all voiced, and there's a system that determines when to play them. It's not as often as we show in the videos. I know people like to complain about that. We also, you can't turn them off. I think we're going to be able to turn them down for how often they are, kind of a slider. But the idea is that there's just some, they just bring a lot of character to your character.
So something to add to that real quick too. We talked a little bit about how Guild Wars 2 doesn't have traditional quests and there's no giant blocks of text you need to read. We've recorded over 60 feature films worth of dialogue in Guild Wars 2. So wherever you go, you can hear characters talking and you can become immersed in the world through the spoken dialogue.
I just recently got done with the Rift beta, and one thing I noticed that was kind of a really big hindrance for me was their big events that you guys talk about you having in your game as well were very pertinent and were a lot of fun and were an important point to the game. But the moment you moved out of a separate area, you didn't know they existed anymore. Do you have something in place to kind of keep everyone globally aware of these events as they're going on, or what do you think about that?
Yeah. All right. So there's nothing else in the game. That persistent world, it is dynamic events. There are over 1,000 of them in the game, and that's the whole point of the game, is to bring people together for these things. And I think that's an important distinction. Probably the biggest one that's easy to overlook is that when you're playing the game, you're not worried about what, your task of 40 quests that you have to kill a bunch of dudes is. Like, what you're doing is you're just out in the world exploring and bumping into these things. And so there's never, oh, I moved out of the area where this is. They're not like random and they happen somewhere where you aren't, right? They're very, very scripted and very planned, and the whole thing is planned to create this experience. I don't know, Colin?
All right, thank you.
Yes.
I've got something to add there too. As you participate in these events, you can leave the area. You don't have to finish every event. You can basically fight the cutthroat pirates for a while, and then get called away by something else. Your participation is still there, so when the event resolves, you still get rewarded. You don't have to go cash in with anybody. You don't have to hang around and wait for the event to finish in order to get a reward.
As far as dynamic events go, I know that if you have, say for example, I realize this is kind of an old example, but something like Tabula Rasa, you liberate the city, okay, now I can go ahead and get these quests. I went and did this quest, came back 20 minutes later, the city was taken over again, I had to go redo it all over again in order to turn it in. I realize that the turning quest element isn't in there, but when the centaurs attack, is that going to be something that happens, every 20 minutes? Because that would be, well, a little old.
So the events in the game do run on cycles. They are part of event chains. So I talked about that centaur example earlier where they attack the city and all these events chain out from there. As the event chains and you completely liberate the city and complete the chain will restart at some point. Unfortunately, we can't make unlimited content that only runs one time. We would need about 10,000 game designers to make that happen. But we do try to make it so that they don't run constantly. Some of you guys may have played our demo down on the show floor. We've got the event times tweaked up, running faster than they normally will, just to make sure that there's enough stuff for you guys to really get a taste of what all the events are like. Normally they would run a little slower than that. The idea is that you shouldn't see the same event all the time, but as you're exploring through a map, you may see the same event happen occasionally. Most importantly, we want it to feel like if you're exploring through the world and going to different places, you're going to see different things going on. The world's going to feel like it's alive, and it's going to feel like if you play through a map twice, you might be able to see completely unique content each time you're playing through our dynamic event system.
So you guys may not know this, but over an hour before, you had the lineup almost full. So I think when you bring this back home to Seattle, you guys need to be in the main theater because you will fill it. Now my question is about escaping the same fate that many recent MMOs have, which is, how do you keep people playing once they've gone through all the content?
I can take this one. When do you guys want to do this? Okay, there is a ridiculous amount of replay value and endgame in Guild Wars 2. So just to get started, we talked about how when you play a character through the game, you have a unique personal story. that branches and changes, and every race has different stories that they can do. So first off, when you're done, when you get to the end of your personal story with one character, you can make another character and play through the game and experience a completely unique, different personal story if you want. When you're doing that and you're playing through the game, you're going to experience completely unique and different dynamic events as a result of that as well. As you go through maps you may have gone through already, you're going to have different content going on. Those maps are going to be in different states. So that right there is just a ton of replay value unto itself. On top of that, we have dungeons in the game, which are 5-man organized party content. The dungeons have a story version that you can do. When you've completed the story version of the dungeon, it unlocks the repeatable version of the dungeon that you can do. And the repeatable versions of the dungeons all have multiple paths through them you can take. So when you get into the dungeon and you start playing through it, you can choose to go down one path and experience completely different content than if you go down a different path. It's not like a traditional MMO dungeon where you load in and you have one linear path and that's what you experience. You have completely different things you can do in each one of these dungeons. So there's a lot of replay value at the end of the game that comes with that. Another thing we have is all of the major cities in the game have tons of mini games in them that you can go do for fun whenever you want. The human city has a perpetual bar brawl where you can go in and brawl other people with bottles and chairs and throw kegs at them. The Norn city has a game called Keg Brawl, which is kind of a mix between soccer and football and a little bit of basketball. Yeah, rugby, there you go. And it's 5-on-5, Norn trying to get kegs back to their brewers, and so you're throwing the kegs back and forth to each other. You can dump the ale on the ground and make people slip and fall down. We have all sorts of mini games like this all throughout the game that you can do, that you can go compete with people for fun, try to get high scores. So that's another piece of content that's available to you at the end game. Two more key things that are available there is our PvP. The first is competitive PvP, which is 5-on-5, highly organized PvP. That comes in the rated version, where if you're really great at the game, you can compete against each other and compete for prizes and do tournaments and all sorts of stuff. And then it has hot joinable PvP, where you literally, just like a first-person shooter, you can jump right into a game and start playing against people. You bring up a server browser, you see the games that are going on, you go into the game type you want to play, and you just start playing instantly. So we're doing a lot with our PvP in that aspect. The other thing we're doing with PvP that's going to be a huge piece of Endgame is world versus world PvP. This is gigantic, unbalanced PvP. This is 30 people could be fighting 300 at once. This is your server matched up against 2 other servers at the same time. This goes back to our point we made earlier about building a sense of community. We want your server to feel like you guys are all allied together against people who are the faceless enemies on the other servers you're trying to take down. You're going to get to know the people on your server, and you're going to get to respect them and play with them and recognize them as you guys band together and fight the other servers in world versus world. And that world versus world PvP is perpetually going on. And you can actually go there and you can level from level 1 to 80 entirely in world versus world PvP if you want. You don't ever have to play PvE.
You guys are revolutionary.
I was going to say, actually, too, when you kill someone in world versus world, the loot, they drop loot, right? You don't have to go back to PvE to get loot, so that's important, too.
So one thing I want to underscore with this is, from everything that Colin described, is people ask, what's your end game content? What do you do as you go through the game? And what we discovered is that everyone has their own demands for MMO. They play MMOs for different reasons. For social, for PvE, for PvP, for the story base, to build up their character. And what we're doing in our endgame content is we're servicing all those different player styles. We recognize we play them ourselves. And so we're building games we want to play.
Good afternoon. First, thank you for coming and sharing this information with us. I'm sure everybody's very excited about it. With regards to the scalable AI, I understand, it's great. It's a great idea that you're going to have it doing the scaling based upon the character's experience. How is it going to handle a mixed level group? Say you have a level 2 character mixed in with a level 10 and a level 20, and how does the game handle that?
Well, this is a great time to talk about our sidekicking system, which is what also at its core is another community building aspect. So the sidekicking system in Guild Wars 2 works two ways. If you're a high-level character and you go back to a low-level part of the game and you start trying to gank everything and ruin the experience for everybody else, you'll actually be sidekicked down to the level of the content in that map so that you can't ruin the experience for everybody else. So if you're a level 2 and you go back, or you're level 20 and you go back to the level 2 area and you start killing stuff, you'll actually be sidekicked down so you're at the level of that content. Now that comes with an added bonus to it. It means that if someone that you know is playing the game and they just started and you're halfway through the game, you don't have to make a new character to go play with them. You can take your character at whatever level they are, jump back and play with them anywhere in the game, and you can always play with your friends. This is again at that core of we're trying to build a community. And it works the other way. If you're level 2 and I'm level 20, I can sidekick you up to level 20 and you can come play with me wherever I am in the game as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you have any machinima tools planned in the future?
Mission tools?
Yeah, machinima.
Randy?
I love it. The one that is the non-answer. I mean, at the moment, we don't have anything super planned in that area, but there's no lack of awesomeness coming from our community out there.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to ask what you learned the most from Guild Wars 1 that you've tried to implement and change from Guild Wars 2, not just MMOs in general, but specifically Guild Wars 1.
Wow, I think we all. Some of them didn't hear the question.
So I'm wondering what you have learned the most from Guild Wars 1 that you have implemented in Guild Wars 2. What things did you look back at in Guild Wars 1 and you wanted to change that, not just MMOs, but specifically Guild Wars 1?
I think we're all going to come up with different answers, but the big one, I think, the change between the two worlds is going from a primarily instance world that we had in Guild Wars 1 and going to this fully persistent world where we are using instancing primarily as a storytelling tool within your personal story. Whereas, the original Guild Wars, we would have a lot of community, a lot of people hanging out in the outposts, and then you would get out beyond the town and it would thin out very quickly. It would basically be, your gang that is currently running that particular mission. By going to a persistent world, we've expanded that out so you'll be encountering other players all over the world. Anybody else want to throw a different lesson?
We did those things for the same reason. Instancing is there to keep people from messing with each other because we didn't have a system like the dynamic event system. But the dynamic event system is like the real solution to that problem. It doesn't create this other problem of people never see each other.
Also with the adding of the Z-axis, talking from a map builder who's both been on Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, not being able to jump was actually a very big limitation when we were building maps in Guild Wars 1 because we had to make sure that we roped off all these areas that you couldn't get to, which was really frustrating, we know, for our players because you see this really cool landmark and you wouldn't be able to go up and see it. But now with the Z-axis and also with swimming, we're able to let people jump off cliffs. We're letting people swim down at a deep, awesome underwater environments, and it's really making our job fun because we can make this really fully traversable environment that you'll be able to jump and swim and be able to see everything you'd like.
So I have a question for Jeff, who I'm sure is getting sick of my questions by now. Just something that came to me last night. Is there any chance you could give us an indication on the overall population and lifespan of the Norn?
I actually answered this question last night as well at the meet and greet. The problem is that not many Norn die of old age. The last words of many Norn are, "Hey, look at this, Vern." That said, okay, they live into triple digits. They stay very young and active well into their older life. The Master of Holbrecht, Newt Whitebears, his father had him when he was 80. So basically they do live longer than humans. They stay active and vital for much longer than humans, but they also live a lifestyle that can cut down the week very, very quickly.
And is there any indication of roughly how many there are, either in Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2?
I wouldn't say I have a consensus for them. I would say, in general, I would say all of our races have about the same rough numbers as far as total population. The Norn, the big problem is a lot of them live solitary lives as well. They come into Holbrook when they need to, so no one's really kept track.
The thought of 10,000 Norns is somewhat scary.
That's okay. They can't form an army. They can't even order lunch together.
I have a question for the guy in the middle there. Hasn't had a question yet. One of the strengths of Guild Wars 1 was its global community. If I have a friend in Germany or a friend in Australia, which I do, am I going to be able on day one to jump in and play with them, or am I going to have to wait for them to import a copy from America like 3 weeks?
Yeah, great question. And that's actually that's all about our global server design. It's something that we talk about all the time. Awesomeness around Guild Wars 1, we were able to create essentially language districts. We're able to play with people all around the world. Is something that we're still working on with respect to how we're going to enable our friends in Europe to play with us in North America. So you're going to hear more about that as we go, but it's something that is top of mind for us, and we're always talking about internally.
And another question, if I may, with the dynamic event system, breadcrumbs. How am I going to know where to go when I'm done with a certain area?
So that's a really great question. That's actually, when we first put the system in and we started bringing in usability testers to test it out, it's actually one of the things that we ran into is they wandered out in the world and they started looking around. They go, well, what do I do? And we're like, well, you just go explore. And they go, well, no, but where do I go? And I think everybody has kind of been conditioned by games to this point where you have a marker, you have something always telling you what you should be doing. So what we did is we've added a system to the game called Scouts, where you can talk to these scouts and they highlight locations on the map and show you little hearts on the map where you can go help people out. And these are fun activities you can do in the game world to help different people out and get little rewards for it. And the people that you help out tend to be stationed around areas where you're going to find dynamic events. It's worth noting that the scout system is totally optional for people who love exploring and don't want any direction whatsoever. You never need to talk to a single one of these guys. You can go out, you can discover the hearts, you can discover the events all on your own, but it does provide a little bit of direction for people who need it, and we found that that's been enough to help kind of breadcrumb people through content. As they go through that and they go through their personal story, they end up running into all these events all over the world in the process, and they naturally just kind of get drawn off into the events, and they start to understand, after you play the game for a couple hours, oh, this is what it's like. It's not like anything I've ever played before. Okay, now I kind of get it, and they just sort of figure it out.
All right, thank you.
In Guild Wars 1, we had the Hall of Monuments where you can show off all your best weapons, armors, and titles. In Guild Wars 2, we have the Hall of Instance. And what ways over the course of the game are we going to be able to improve our home instance?
Is that me?
I'll take part of it and then I'll hand it back over to you. Sure. Your home instance reflects the nature of your personal story. It basically, as you go through your story, your home instance will change as a result of actions that you've taken during that. One example is we give, do you save the orphanage or do you save the hospital? And if you save the orphanage, there are orphans there in your home instance to say wonderful things about you, but this wreckage where the hospital once was, and that they have to rebuild. And the vice versa, if you choose to save the hospital, it's still there, and the orphans are wandering to the streets saying, oh, we have no place to live. So the effects of what you choose over your personal event will have a dramatic effect on your home instance and make it different from everybody else's. You want to add anything to that?
No, that's great.
Okay, not at this point.
All right, thank you.
I gotta say that while watching the demo, I was really impressed with the dynamic events. It was really cool to see like 5 people come together or stumbling upon like 2 people who are down on the ground, one guy's fighting for his life, and then you change the entire battle around by reviving them, and it's awesome. And the battles are actually tough. The monster didn't just like disappear as soon as 5 more people came. So I guess my question is, with dynamic events, as we keep playing, we're going to get kind of used to some of the same old events. Are you going to be adding new events in as the game goes on, like either without us even knowing, just like little mini patch things with new dynamic events in areas that like we haven't explored yet, or even that we are used to, and all of a sudden, oh wait, I don't remember pirates being here, or I don't remember these dragon whatever's coming in. So are you going to be adding new dynamic events as the game length goes on?
I'll take this one. You know, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Guild Wars 1's almost 6 years old, and we had a major content release last week. So we'll have a solid live team for Guild Wars 2, and you're gonna get new content over time. So it's inevitable that you'll see new events out there as the game progresses.
Speaking about that as well, thank you for changing the dervish. My favorite class just got better.
Hey guys. When I was playing the dynamic events, one of the things that popped into my head was, what would stop someone from ruining your experience, running in there, just putting a bullet in something and just kind of sitting around? I mean, like, he's there, so everything gets tougher, but he's not doing anything. Is he still going to get the full amount of experience and amount of credit that everyone else is getting from actually caring and working towards finishing this event?
So when we talk about events dynamically scaling, we always use the word that events dynamically scale to include players who are actively participating in the event. And we use that word because the system actually detects if you are participating and only adds you to the scaling factor if you are doing so. And if you run in, you shoot one bullet, and you stand around, it's going to count the fact that you're not actively doing anything towards the event, and it's going to start scaling it back down to remove you from it. It's pretty intelligent AI in that it figures out what's going on and tries to react accordingly. So from that perspective, it's set up so that people cannot grief that kind of content. For the rewards are set up on certain scales. So based on how much participation you do in an event, you can earn bronze, silver, or gold participation, and you earn different amounts of gold, karma, and experience based on how much you participated. We tried to set it up so if somebody comes in and they're basically actively participating in an event, they will earn gold participation. It's important to us that if you're there and you're playing, we're going to reward you completely for doing so. If you run in, you kill a guy, and you run off, you'll probably get like bronze participation because you just did a little bit to help, but not enough to qualify.
Awesome. And another question, if I can, just real quick. One of the major gripes that I had with Guild Wars 1 was, you'd go, like, if you wanted to sell anything, you'd go to Commodon, you'd sit there for an entire day, spamming your trade message saying, I want to sell this, please, dear God, let me sell this, oh my God. Are you guys going to add in an auction house? I know Vindictus, in particular, does a great job adding that in. You can put something on there, and within a couple hours it's gone, and you make some nice money that way. Have you thought about that at all?
Yes. There is.
Thank you.
There is not just an auction house, it's actually what we call marketplace. So you can post items up there, but people can also post bids up there and say, like, I want to buy this item at this price, and then they leave. And then if someone has it and they want to sell it to them, you can just go and look, oh, what are people trying to buy? So it kind of works both ways, that both buyers and sellers don't need to be there. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess my question has a lot to do with player versus player, but it also can kind of be integrated into PvE as well. My favorite thing probably about Guild Wars in general is the fact that your skills are not just like the storyline that you guys are talking about in this game, but your skills are kind of personalized to you. Like, I haven't played the game in a very long time actually, but like, I had my own skills, like nobody else I felt like had my skill set. In this game, I know you guys have like the weapons, they give you 5 skills already, like, and I like that idea, but I was just wondering, like, is there gonna be a lot of personalization with the PvP and your skills?
Yeah, it's actually kind of daunting. It's actually a lot more customization than Guild Wars 1 had, even though it doesn't seem like it on the surface, because we're trying to make it easier to understand, but it's very, very overwhelming, and I'll be surprised if anyone in this room understands all of it until a few months after we ship the game. There's so much in there that it's kind of hard to get a grasp of all of it. First, just in a few different ways, the skills in Guild Wars were very complex, and so they only piece together in very, very specific ways. You can backbreaker and then you use crushing blow, but there are a lot of people, I'm sure, brought crushing blow in the first couple weeks of the game without even being able to knock guys down, and it's really quite useless. So what we did is we made the skills a lot more like building blocks, so that you can actually piece them together in so many different ways that just on your weapon alone, there's so much stuff that you're doing that kind of just is complicated. There's traits that modify those skills. There's weapon bonuses. There's the way that those attributes interact with them. There's just so much going on. You have to pick 2 weapon sets. You have to pick, 3 one of a few heal skills, 3 out of 20 to 25 utility skills, 1 out of many elite skills. I think just picking the right side of your bar skills alone, I think it's something like 87,000 combinations for each profession. So there's going to be plenty of stuff for you to decide. I wouldn't be too worried.
Okay, great, thank you.
I know one thing that has become more and more important to me as I play MMOs, especially ones with dynamic content and betas and things like that, has not just been the really great dynamic content that I think your game definitely has, but also the really small convenience things that kind of pop up that just make the game, a lot less, it has a lot of great content, but it's less annoying around the sides. And one of them I've seen with dynamic content is you go to an area and you're doing content and you log out for the night and you come back in the morning and your leveling zone is now in enemy territory and you have to spend half an hour trying to res walk your way out of that area because you're now stuck in the middle of a town that's filled with enemies. So not only on that specific example, but is there any other small things that you feel really make the game a lot more fun to play without being this huge, huge product idea?
One thing you can do, basically, is we have rally points, and we see them in the map already, is that basically, as opposed to basically exiting out at one of those points where, it might be a town that might be taken over in your absence, is going to one of those rally points, because those tend to be safe zones to start off with. So that's what we're really seeing. Also, if you're in an area that gets taken over, you can teleport to those rally points, basically through a low cost, depending upon distance. So the idea of, oh great, I'm going to die and then not be able to I have to, get rezzed again, is you can basically go to those rally points if you find yourself out on a limb.
Yeah, and you can actually travel using those to a different map as well. And also, it doesn't mean that you have to sit there with 10 minutes of res sickness. We don't have anything like that in the game, right? So.
All right, and I had one last comment. One thing I remember, I actually never got to play Guild Wars 1, but was a lot of the content also being, really great, really awesome rewards for doing really ridiculous things. And we were actually talking about it in line. Do you have any guys right off the top of your head, what you would give somebody if they were able to level 1 to whatever the level cap is in World PvP without dying?
I'd buy the first person to do at launch.
Thank you.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we have time for 2 more questions, okay?
My question's more about the casual players. I want to drag my friends into playing Guild Wars 2, but some of them aren't very good. They enjoy these sort of games, but they're not very good at the more skill-based classes, like the likes of Thieves, etc. Do you have the equivalent classes for the Team Fortress Heavy, or the Warcraft Paladin, or something basically easy mode, suitable for people that like that sort of game and want to play with me, but aren't very good at it?
Yeah, you mean warriors? No, I'd like to play a warrior, so I won't joke about it. But warriors are definitely, I think, as you saw, we started out introducing, the more basic professions, your elementalists and your warriors, the kind of simple things, and they're going to start to get a little more complex now as we go. The thief right now is the most complicated one so far, but there's a few more coming still. So.
My question kind of builds off what he was just saying about player ability. One of the challenges with community-based playstyle is that you'll have people that want to cast the spell that is the green fire, even though all of their good spells are the red fire, though they want to do something for an RP reason or because it looks cool or what have you. And while they're actively participating in things, they're still getting credit for everything, but it's not like the game isn't really forcing them to try to get better. Do you think that there's things in the game that are like, hey, you should probably dodge that, or is it kind of one of those things where you can coast by so long as everybody else is trying?
All right. I mean, by all means, if people don't want to walk out of the Drake breath, I guess that's their prerogative. It definitely hurts a lot if you just stand in it. It's one of those things where you kind of, the better you are, the less damage you take from it. You know, you get that hit from that first couple ticks versus, you know, people who take the first, 50% of it. Or if you wanted to stand in it the whole time and then go into down mode. Those are kind of your choices. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to, every creature kind of has these things that they use to break up the pace of combat. And so those things are kind of meant for that. And it kind of gives the opportunity for players, and because we have this bigger progression and this bigger sense of scale, like players that want to find easier stuff can just go and fight stuff that's a couple levels below them versus the stuff that's, I know a couple of us at work, we try and grab a group of 2 or 3 people and fight stuff that's like 8 or 9 levels above us, where it's like every hit is a one shot and you have to like knock down every single time. It's like, okay, throwing out the blind, go, okay, dodge away, dodge. I mean, we have all that stuff in there, so it just kind of depends on what you want to do.
We're also in the, I've been working a lot in the dungeons, which is our instanced 5-person play areas. And for the story mode of this, we're looking so that we're working on a design approach that basically a 5-person group will be able to complete it and survive the story. The repeatable modes where you come back, the learning curve goes up a lot, okay? So basically we're assuming you're gonna be 5 levels higher and you're gonna be an organized group. You're gonna know what you're doing. People are gonna know how they fit together in the group and to be able to complete those. So we will have areas with, I won't say more difficult or just more challenging combat and interactions.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, the clock is ticking. We actually have 3 minutes left, which means that we have time for one final question. This gentleman is being proactive and jumping up on the mic. Very good.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much for making such a beautifully visual game, as opposed to many other MMOs that are out there. World of Warcraft. It's a hideous looking game. First one is a yes or no question for my girlfriend, please. She wants to know about the 8 skills, if those are going to stay or not, or if you're going to have the ability to just have more than 8 skills at a time.
All right, there's 10 slots on the bar. You get 2 weapon sets. So on a given class, profession, that can sometimes mean up to 20 skills. So an elementalist generally has access to about 38 skills at any given time. So if that's not enough to satisfy her, I'm not sure what to do.
Nice. And second one, real quick. I like the ability to be a mage wearing plate if I have this certain requirements to be able to wear different gear. Being a very squishy character like a mage, could I wear a plate chest, plate helm?
You're going to want to look at the Guardian, I think. So what we try and do is make our professions feel very, very distinct from each other and make sure that, if there's an archetype that you are interested in, that there's something for you. I mean, we joke about we've joked for a while about the sneaky archetype and people who like to play that anti-hero, and now we reveal the thief and stuff. We kind of went with 8 professions because we think that is a really good way to cover, it's enough to kind of cover a lot of the really important archetypes for players. So each one still has those distinctions, and we make sure that we keep them, very distinct in that way. The Guardians are heavy armor guys, warriors are, no one else wears heavy armor, and those are the things that set them apart, and we need to make distinctions like that so that players can kind of have an identity with those different professions. But then, we talk about this, the removal of secondaries. The weapons you pick are actually a little bit like your secondaries in Guild Wars 2, so there's a lot of versatility there. Like spell casting heavy guy is the Guardian. He's got kind of staff and scepter, but you can also mace with a Guardian and just kind of wade right into battle and kind of smash people's faces.
Awesome. I've been waiting for a game like this since Warcraft has teased us with the MMO feel, so thank you.